The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, Third Wheel Sean, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Azul Stained Glass of Sintra from Next Move Games. Then they'll take a look back at their review of Pulsar 2849 in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex. Sorry, I lost the signal for a bit. We have this brand new fancy high-speed internet, and it's not actually sometimes so high speed for some reason. It glitched out for me right at that very key moment of the podcast, and for that, I am very sorry. It will not happen again unless it does.
And Sean, and this is episode 195, which, thanks to Kyle Kelly, we are titling "Fly Me to the Moon." You
have to sing it.
I don't know the rest of the words.
No, you don't. You know the.
Fly me to the moon.
You don't even know the next part of that.
I don't.
Fly me to the moon. Let me play with the stars, or among the stars. I don't know, something like that.
No,
but
yeah, like
that's close to it. Anyway,
what a fantastic episode title, because we are reviewing Azul Sintra. Not to be confused with Sinatra, although I keep referring it to Sinatra just because, and apparently people on the guild do too.
I feel like if Next Move Games does another Azul and made Azul Stained Glass of Sinatra, I think that would sell better.
I think so. So Fly Me to the Moon, obviously a Frank Sinatra song, and we're talking about Pulsar 3215 Alpha Charlie in our double
not
take.
Close.
I don't remember what the number is.
2849.
8675309. And anyway, we name all of our episodes with the help of our awesome Board Game Geek Guild number 2008.
Oh, you knew that number pretty well.
I do know that number pretty well. And then every other week we post our Dukes on Deck, where you can help us talk about the games that we're going to be discussing in the upcoming podcast. Real quick, Alex, before I see how you're doing, I just want to mention, hey, we're going to have a special guest today.
Oh, yeah. Well, a little bit later on. Yeah.
Well, no, right now, Shelob, the giant spider that I had to capture before we started. We got started a little bit late because I walked down, and in the Dukes of Dice video studio, there was this giant spider suspended in midair on this sheet of web. I've never seen a sheet of web. Like just like strands going down. But like a perfect sheet, like it was crazy, Alex. I'm a little nervous here, but Shelob is doing fine. She's a little upset that she's been captured. And every now and then I see spider movement out of the corner of my eye, and I freak out, forgetting that she's contained.
Yeah, you were pretty upset, pretty unnerved when you came into the basement. You told me to dial 9, then 1, but not the other one. You weren't quite at that state of emergency yet. But yeah, that spider. That is a beefy spider. That's a juicy spider, I would even say.
We're actually probably going to move now. Just knowing that this thing could exist in this house makes me want to move.
Now, I will say, if you just use the Dukes of Dice video studio a little more often, this wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, just saying. So you were about to ask me how I was doing.
Oh,
Sean.
yeah. Never mind. Let's move on. So,
okay.
Now, how you doing, Alex?
I'm fine. I'm doing fine. This is a big weekend. I've already started moving some of my stuff in here with Abby, my girlfriend. We're going to be getting rid of a bunch of stuff, but I have a U-Haul truck I'm running tomorrow, so she's going to have to put up with me on more of a full-time basis here pretty soon, which I think she's both horrified and delighted about. I don't know. Probably a mixed reaction.
So just for the record, I will pro bono do all of the paperwork to legally change her last name to my girlfriend. M-A-G.
So she's going to be on the episode a little bit later on. Let's run that by her and see if that's something she'd be up for.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Hey, let's.
By the way, she can only hear one side of this conversation right now, and she's sitting on the couch. I'm not going to say what she's up to, but she's sitting on the couch, and she is giving me some very quizzical looks during all of this because she's only hearing the one part of it. She's not hearing your lawyerly efforts.
Well, hey, Alex, let's talk about some board games.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Why don't you go first? Because you've actually been playing some new stuff that's not Magic the Gathering Online.
Well, but I have been playing Magic the Gathering Online quite a bit still. But yes, I have some actual board games to discuss. And the first was a game that I was certain I was going to enjoy quite a bit. And that's Underwater Cities, designed by Vladimir Suchy?
I think it's Vladimir, yeah.
Okay. So this game is really, really good. It's not available yet in the US, although I think pretty soon it will be. Rio Grande is supposed to be doing the US distribution. But Rory actually paid a bunch of money to have it imported over for some reason. And I'm glad that he did. This is a little reminiscent to me of Terraforming Mars, because there's a big deck of cards and you're playing out these cards. You're building this network of underwater cities. You have your own board. You're not building a shared planet, but you're building your own little network. And there's synergy with the cards. There's some combos, just like you have in Terraforming Mars. So it feels similar, but not derivative, because the big difference here is that the cards are not your main action. The main action is actually worker placement. But there are 3 colored sections of actions, which correspond to the 3 different colors of cards. And every time you take a worker placement action, you have to spend a card. If the card color happens to match, then you're going to get some sort of bonus. So it's interesting because the cards that you have in hand are directing you towards certain colors of actions, but you may be like, well, I don't have red cards, but I really need to take this one red action. And it's really interesting. So basically, you are collecting resources throughout the game to build these underwater cities, and then you're building these additional types of buildings around them to support them, which give you a bunch of production, which is going to help you in the second phase and the third phase, and then also give you some end game scoring points. There is quite a bit to this game. I'm not going to go too much more into detail. We might review this at some point. I will say this. It was totally at my wheelhouse. This game was incredible. After one play, it is very, very possible that I would call this the best game that I've played of 2018.
Wow.
I mean, it's technically a 2018 game. It's better than Teotihuacan. It's better than Space Corp. Not Space Court, but Space Corp.
Nothing's better than Space Court.
Yeah, Space Court is the best. Space Court is like slot 0, you know? It was really incredible. And there's lots of different paths to victory, lots of different ways to play the game. It was really good. And I have heard that there's been some Terraforming Mars comparisons, like it's a ripoff of Terraforming Mars or something. I don't know. I don't think it's reminiscent, but it's very different, and does a lot of cool things. It's really good, and I'm curious to see what you'll think of it. I think you'll like it, and I think that current Alex would like it much more than a couple years ago Alex.
That's probably true. And I will say, at least off of the one design of Vladimir Suchy's I've played, this has pretty good chances of being one that I'll also love. Just off of the one design, which we'll talk about later on in the show.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Underwater Cities.
Very cool. The one I'm going to be talking about is and I hesitate to say older gem, because it's not really that old of a game, but it's one that's been around for a while, and for some people, they consider a grail game. It's a game called Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil. This is a game that came out, I believe, in 2011. Came out in 2011, which by our Cult of the New standards is ancient in this hobby. But this is a cooperative game. It's Viking themed. You are playing as a bunch of Viking gods trying to stop Ragnarok. And Ragnarok is going to be caused if a certain number of these, I don't know if they're demons or demigods or whatever they are, advance too far on these various tracks. Each turn, at the start of your turn, you're going to flip over a card and then advance forward the respective demon. So if it's, say, the Hell-related one, he'll remove one of the Vikings that you'll need to battle back these demons. Or if it's the dog, it might lock up your actions. You have to roll a die until you can deactivate it. There's a wide array of nasty things these things will do to you. And then on your turn, you have 3 different actions you can take of a wide array. You can try and thin out these bags. It's at its core a bag building game. You can draw tokens from the bag and keep any Vikings that you receive, returning any fire demons. Those are sort of the nasty things in there back to the bag. You can advance your person to try and draw from a better bag at the start of the game. The further down the track it is, the more valuable or the more likely it is you're going to be drawing Vikings out of that bag as opposed to something iffier. There's the arm yourself space, which lets you go and grab a weapon. So you can go get better at fighting, say, the Hades-esque demon, or you can get better at fighting the dog demon or whatever else. There's a space where you can advance forward on a track to eventually get some sort of special build. You can advance. Let me explain this a little better. You can invest now to potentially get a better action later on. So you can drop actions into this space that might let you, in a later turn, immediately knock back a demon or immediately acquire a weapon of some kind. So there's that investment area. And then there's this, you can also battle the demons on your turn too, in which you'll roll a die, add any Vikings you want to, add any elves. Elves are sort of the last gasp defense measure. There's a whole lot of things, spaghetti, I'm throwing at the wall here. The bottom line is it's a really intriguing cooperative game. Really enjoyed it. And it felt different or unique compared to some of the other ones I've played. It used bag building in a really cool way. And despite the fact that it's from 2011, it certainly didn't feel dated. It got a pretty good table reception. Even playing this, Sean, at 5 players for my first play, which would be pretty beefy for most cooperative games. But this was engaging enough that you felt good about those decisions. I hope this thing gets put into wider distribution again because, man, oh man, was this thing a ton of fun. And this may now become my Grail game. I may go around trying to find a way of acquiring it. Really high praise for Yggdrasil. We lost, by the way. Not badly, but we lost. Still had a ton of fun. Love that game. Have you played that one before, Sean?
I haven't. So my buddy Andy actually has a copy. And he's been on the show before. He was actually one of the visitors for SeanCon last summer. And prior to that, at the Arizona Game Fair last February, he brought it with him. And we opened it up. And made me want to cry. All of the components were just mixed together inside the box because his son had put it away. And it was heart-wrenching to see that. He likes it, and so I'm sure at some point, like if I go to Arizona for Arizona Game Fair in March, maybe I could play it then.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. I think it's really cool.
Do you think I'll like it?
Maybe.
Oh.
There may or may not be enough depth to it, but I like the little element of randomness, the elements of surprise, the flip off the top of the deck feels very Pandemic, though it's not deck building. It feels more like Lords of Vegas, where you're trying to count which card is most likely to come up next, rather than, say, Pandemic, where you're hoping it's not going to be this one specific city next. So, yeah, I really enjoyed Yggdrasil.
So, Alex, the next game I'm going to talk about is a game that I was pretty excited for. It was one of my anticipated games we talked about when we were talking about anticipated games of 2019, and that is New Horizons, which is the Race for the Galaxy board game. So kind of doing something different than the cards and doing something different than the dice in Roll for the Galaxy. This is now supposed to be a board game. And I think I expected something different. And what I played was good, and it was fine, and it was enjoyable, and it was very familiar. Basically, it was kind of the Puerto Rico to San Juan, even though Puerto Rico came out first. They're very similar in that sense. So for those that don't know, basically the idea here is that you are selecting an action. By selecting that action, you're going to let everyone else do that action, but you're going to get some bonus for having picked that action. And you're then building worlds, and you're building developments. Worlds can give you resources and sometimes some special abilities. Developments can give you special abilities. And you're basically trying to fill out your tableau with these worlds and developments, trying to score points either through trading certain commodities away or just by the value of these worlds and these developments. And the game will end when a certain number of when your board's been filled up. Basically, your tableau's been filled up, and whoever has the most points is the winner. I'm kind of oversimplifying. For those that are familiar with Race for the Galaxy, Roll for the Galaxy, I mean, I started playing this with pretty much no rules explanation. In fact, Chris had it set up. He pulled me over, and we just kind of jumped right into it because I knew enough, and it was just a question of, okay, is this particular action carried out a little bit differently than in Race for the Galaxy? Yes, here's the slight difference. Okay, cool. It was good. It was enjoyable. Had I never played Roll for the Galaxy or Race for the Galaxy, I think I would have been like, oh my God, this game is amazing. I was expecting, I don't know, for some reason when I heard that it's going to be a board game, I was almost expecting like having to move around a board, having to like go out and explore planets or something. And I guess that's not what it is. And so it was fine, but I don't have a big need to go get it myself. I think Race and or Roll are just fine on their own. I love both those games so much. And this one was good. I think it's worth a shot. Maybe you feel like it might have a place in a collection alongside the others. I don't think it does, but I would certainly not turn down a play of it. I think it was just fine. And it's easier to teach than the actual card game. And you know what? To be fair, it's easier to teach than Roll for the Galaxy too. It's probably a lot more accessible than either of those without going to the far extreme of Jump Drive, which is the super accessible intro game that I felt lacked significant depth. So yeah, it kind of a lukewarm reception to New Horizons, but that's just because of what's come before it and because of how high I probably had my expectations for it.
That's fair enough. Yeah, and it seems like you may not be the target audience for this anyway.
I don't know. Who knows?
All right. Fair enough.
So that's New Horizons.
The last thing I'll talk about is not anything new, but it was an enjoyable play experience, and sort of this combo, I think, lends itself to actually a pretty fun back-to-back experience. So, Sean, you're, of course, familiar with the game Deep Sea Adventure, yes?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And you're familiar with the game Celestia, yes?
Yes.
So both of these are push your luck games, one from Oink Games, the other one from Quick Simple Fun Games. And in Deep Sea Adventure, you are a group of treasure hunting scuba divers who are all sharing the same oxygen tank, and you're trying to grab enough of it and run up to the surface before you run out of air. And whoever has the most treasure points at the end of the game is going to be the winner. Celestia is also a push your luck game in a similar vein, where you are on airships and there's a captain trying to navigate storms. The further the ship goes, the more points you get when you jump off and claim your treasure reward. So that's Deep Sea Adventure and Celestia. And we ended up playing them at Jamie's Game Night not too long ago, back to back. And why that lent itself to an interesting play experience was there was this weird story that this weird narrative that emerged out of that, where basically whoever survived Deep Sea Adventure, which in that game, quite frequently, you just straight up drown. You just straight up don't make it up with any treasure. In fact, it happened to, I think, a couple of the people we were playing with every single round of that game. Every single round. And so the one surviving person now invests that fortune into airships, and all of a sudden, you're in Celestia. I don't know why it worked as well as it did, but there was this weird inside jokey something or other that came out as a result of that. And for that reason alone, I don't know, give it a try. Play them back to back. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe you'll have the same experience we did, but we were laughing a ton, kind of reminiscing over one game while playing the next. So for some reason, that combo fit just right. It was like a chocolate and peanut butter. And I don't know.
I feel like you need a third game. It needs to be a trilogy of games.
Okay. Does Ink and Gold play a role somewhere in there, maybe?
No, because it's too specific, right? It's Incan. For some reason, it needs to be... I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, if you know the third game that should fit in this trilogy that Sean thinks should be a trilogy, but actually wasn't a trilogy, hit us up on the Guild. Board Game Geek Guild number 2048. Just kidding, it's 2008. Terrible joke. Anyway, that's all the games we played. Let's head on over to the news desk. First up, some news that made its way all the way onto Yahoo Finance and a bunch of other significant news outlets. And it's interesting whenever you have board game news get covered to this level. Funko, which is best known for what? Those little figurines, right, Sean?
Funko Pops.
Yep, Funko Pops, which I have never purchased a single one of, but are definitely cute and adorable, has purchased a company that I didn't know by name, a company called Forrest-Pruzan Creative. I hadn't heard of them, but I've definitely played some of their games. They're best known for Villainous, Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. They can make some magic with some IPs and make some legitimate games out of them. Villainous especially is a really, really solid game that has a major IP associated with it. Now, this is being done apparently as a way for Funko to compete with Hasbro, which I found pretty fascinating. Sean, how did you react to this news?
Yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting. Now, I own a bunch of Funko Pops, which would probably shock no one. So yeah, this is interesting, and the fact that they're kind of gunning for Hasbro is interesting. And I don't know what effect that's going to have on the hobby market, if any at all. But it's certainly something to watch for. And I'm wondering if competition amongst giants will have some improvement on some mass market titles. I mean, we're starting to see some of that, right? So I don't know. I think it'll bear some scrutiny in the coming months and years.
Well, I mean, Villainous and Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle are both legitimate hobby games.
Yes, absolutely.
With themes that make them more mass market. And so it's a way that they've kind of touched both markets in a really interesting way. I was very surprised by how hobby, so to speak, Villainous was. So it lends itself to this concept that maybe there's going to start being more crossover, and some of these mass market games will start to be stepped up in terms of quality. Maybe that won't actually be the case, but it seems like a move in that direction at least.
Yeah.
What I also found interesting in the Yahoo Finance article is that, and I'll just read it verbatim, quote, despite the interest in playing games on mobile devices, the board game market is seen growing 9% annually through 2023. The growth is expected to be fueled by millennials finally having kids and choosing more family-style activities at home. So I think it's interesting that driver and how the hobby is seen, that it's seen as this potentially cool thing that folks kind of in my age, your age, are doing with their families. And it lends itself to future health for the hobby, I think. So I think this is, overall speaking, great news for the hobby.
You darn millennials.
Yep. Are you Gen X? Is that what you consider yourself?
I'm on the cusp. I'm straddled kind of right in between. I'd probably identify more as Gen X than millennial. Because if I were millennial, I wouldn't want to self-identify, right? We don't like millennials don't like labels.
Okay. Well, that was a bad joke, and you should feel ashamed. It
was actually a reference to Tommy Lahren interview on The Daily Show.
Oh, I see. Well, I haven't seen that.
Oh, so okay.
Anyway, so yeah, that's Funko scooping up Forrest-Pruzan Creative. Keep an eye on what that might turn into, because it intrigued me for sure. All right, next up, and this one caught both of our eyes because why not? Keyforge is coming out with a new set, Keyforge Age of Ascension. 204 new cards in the set, 166 existing cards carried over from set to set. Set to be released in May of 2019. Sean, how did you feel about this news?
Kind of unenthused. And you know
why is that?
You know why, Alex. Say its name.
Because of Magic the Gathering.
Yes, I grow stronger. Yeah, so okay. First off, let me say this. I have seen a lot of people online and social media being like, boy, they sure didn't waste any time. That was too quick. No, that was always the plan, and that's something that I would want as a Keyforge player. I guess I am a Keyforge player, and I guess that is something I do want. But at the same time, yeah, Keyforge was fun, and a lot of innovation there, something that I enjoyed playing quite a bit. I'm sure I will buy a couple packs because it's a relatively small investment, $10 to get a deck. But I'm just not as gaga over Keyforge as when it first came out, because I've been playing a ton of Magic again. By the way, Alex, they just announced the next set coming out in April, War of the Spark, which is going to be the final showdown between Nicol Bolas, the Elder Dragon Planeswalker, and the Gatewatch, who are all of the other Planeswalkers.
All I could think of in hearing that name is that they're fighting, it's Transformers. There's some sort of Transformers crossover going on with Magic.
Nah. Anyway.
The Allspark.
So yeah, I think this is good. I think this is probably, I mean, it's pretty interesting how they're doing this, right? So you're going to get a new deck, and it's going to have some old cards, and it's going to have some new cards in it. And the distribution, you don't quite know. Like, you're not guaranteed to get half and half or anything like that. And there's even some cards that will be legacy cards, so cards that aren't technically in this new set, Age of Ascension. They're going to have existed in the prior set, but they'll still be brought in on a very like rare basis, and they're considered legacy cards. So I don't know. I was wondering how this was going to work, whether it was going to be just a completely brand new pool of cards, because it's odd by design, right? It's odd that you can't use a new set to supplement pre-existing stuff, because that's not how the game works, right? And so it's interesting. You just have to buy more product for the sake of just having brand new decks. It doesn't make an old deck better or different or improved or anything like that. And I'm wondering if that might be, I don't know, if that might be a sticking point for more traditional CCG and LCG players like myself.
It certainly doesn't bother me, because the whole concept of the new set is you're going to see some of these old cards in new ways, now that they can combo in different ways with a wider variety of cards. I think it's nothing but good. I don't know how much of it I'll buy. I'll probably buy at least a deck or two. But I think and especially given the promise that inherently this will not be any better or worse than the previous set that came before it. And we'll see if that promise is true, but that's an important promise to have, that, hey, any of these decks you scooped up in the first set may potentially still be competitive with the deck from this newer set.
So let me use this as an opportunity to continue talking about Magic the Gathering. Well, okay. So the newest set, Ravnica Allegiance, just came out about a month ago, right? And there's this magical time that occurs the couple weeks after a brand new set comes out, where you take existing decks that have existed, constructed decks in Standard, the Standard metagame, right? And you're saying, okay, how can we tweak and improve these existing decks with some of the new cards? So, like, I'm running about 5 different competitive decks. And so I would be like, okay, cool, this one card, I'm going to add this in. That's all I'm going to add in. The deck is finely tuned well enough. It just needs this one card. This other deck might have gotten like 3 new cards that might be really good in this deck. And then you have to decide, well, what cards do I have to cut? And then also, are there whole new deck archetypes that have come out because of this new set? And it's this whole discovery process. Like, you'll see people, what you think are, they're playing these like terrible cards. You're like, why are they playing these cards? And it's this brand new deck that's been going around. You're like, oh, wow, that works really well. So that's an exciting thing that happens every time there's a new set released in Magic. And it's fun and it's challenging. And you don't quite get that here.
Okay.
So
fair enough. But that's also a part of the game that I'm not so intrigued by anyway. So doesn't bother me one bit.
Absolutely.
Any case. All right, finally, talking about a Kickstarter, and this is one that was an insta-back for me. An insta-back. It's a game called Wavelength. It's designed, it's kind of a team-up. It's a co-design with Wolfgang Warsch, best known for The Mind, as well as Quacks of Quedlinburg and Doppelt so Clever and Ganz schön Clever. A ton of amazing games. So it's co-designed by him, as well as Alex Haig and Justin Vickers. Those other 2 names I wasn't familiar with, but they're best known for the party game Monikers. And this is, in fact, a party game with a little bit of that kind of mental twist to it, is the hope, or what they're talking about. It's a social guessing game where you have teams competing to read each other's minds. And boy, oh boy, Sean, the look of this and the play of this are things I was very excited about upon seeing this. $29 base pledge. It's unclear whether that's going to what the MSRP ultimately is going to be. They've said in updates that it's going to be no less than $35. We'll see what ends up happening with that. MSRPs can be pretty fluid, especially when you get the realities of something post-campaign. Sean, how did this game strike you?
It looks really interesting. In fact, I think, was it Matthew that showed it to us in chat? And Matthew being not a huge fan of the Mind, or maybe I found it. Doesn't matter. It looks intriguing to me, and given his very brief and recent design pedigree, I'm certainly willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I've enjoyed every game he's designed, or every game of his that I've played. I don't know if I'm sure there's probably a couple other designs out there, but of the three-ish, four you mentioned, I haven't played the new Gancho and Clever.
It's awesome, by the way. That thing's awesome. You should play the app. You'll like it better. You'll like it better than Gons, I'm pretty sure.
So yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt, and no, I don't think anyone in our group is going to back this out here. So it's $35 with shipping, which is a little bit more. Like I wanted to spend like $25 on this, so I don't know. I'm going to do a 48-hour reminder on Kickstarter, and we'll see.
Okay. I'm in. I'm both feet in on this. And let me explain a little bit more about how the game itself works, because I didn't really get a ton into that other than saying it's another party game, deduction, social game from Wolfgang Warsch and the Monikers folks. How it works is there's a dial that's placed in a secret spot. So it might be on the low end, kind of closer to, if you ranked it on like a 1 to 10, closer to a 1 or closer to a 10, or anywhere shades of gray in the middle. And most of the time it's going to be shades of gray. And there will be a card that will have two opposites. So for instance, hot and cold, or lowbrow and highbrow. Those are the two options that you'll have. And as the person giving the clue, you have to give a clue to get people to guess, what's slightly more lowbrow than highbrow. What's like a 4 on, if you were to rank things 1 to 10, with lowbrow being 1, highbrow being 10, what would a 4 on that be? And so you have to give a 1 concept clue, and then your team is going to guess where on the wedge they think that concept is. The other team will also be able to place a guess. The closer you get to it, there's like a bullseye type of thing. The more points that you'll score, and whoever can get to a certain number of points first wins. They've been playing games of this on their Twitter account, and I've tried to respond just about every single time I see one of those. It's a lot of fun just playing it without actually having the game. I anticipate really loving this game. And the look of this, Sean, was, to me, breathtaking. I think it looks fantastic.
Cool.
So that is Wavelength. You have until March 8th. You want to get in on this. It has well exceeded its funding goal, unlocking stretch goals now. That's Wavelength, and that is a look at the news. So, Sean, I like recording the podcast with you, but man, it doesn't feel right if I'm not doing it at a proper table. Right now I'm sitting at this dinky square kitchen table. It's kind of cramped. I don't feel like if I needed to roll dice, they just kind of clank around, and it just wouldn't be a satisfying experience. So I feel like I could use an upgrade.
Oh, well, perhaps a game topper from our good buddy Berkey would be the right solution to your particular problem, Alex.
Is that right? Well, good thing I actually already have one of those fine things.
Oh, perfect.
And really enjoy using it.
So is this a solution to a problem that you no longer have?
When I move in with my girlfriend Abby, it will be a problem I will no longer have, because I'll bring this game topper over here, and then I'll have that ready to go either when I'm podcasting or chucking some dice or playing games or whatever else. It can convert the benign kitchen table into a fun gaming experience at a nice, affordable price. And if you order now, every single game topper comes with 5 pounds of Berkey jerky.
Ooh, does it really?
No, I actually don't think that's a deal.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't say that.
Would make me more likely to buy a second one, because that jerky, I can't get enough of that jerky in my life.
Mwah! That's all I have to say about Berkey's jerky.
Also, mwah! That's what I have to say about his game toppers. Berkey, you are a mwah kind of guy.
Be sure to check out Game Toppers over at GameToppersLLC.com. So, Alex, do you recall playing the multiplayer worker placement game Yokohama by our fine sponsors over at Tasty Minstrel Games?
Boy, it was so long ago, and yeah, of course I remember. It was an awesome game, Sean. An amazing game.
Yeah, we both enjoyed it quite a bit. So I was excited to hear that Yokohama Duel, which is all the rage nowadays, take an awesome game and then put Duel on it, and now you've got a sweet 2-player game. And I think that's what's going to happen here, don't you?
Oh yeah, no, this looks great.
So this will be coming to Kickstarter in late January of this year, so keep your eyes out for that. Yokohama Duel is a 2-player worker placement game that lasts 4 rounds, with each player taking 4 turns each round. The game includes 10 different areas, and each area can be used only once each round. Workers have certain powers, but they can only be used by people with low power. To gain victory points, players must complete the order form, build shops and trading houses, clear custom goods, and dedicate the church. At the end of the game, whichever player has more points is the winner.
So if you fancy yourself a merchant, you might want to go prepare some funds to invest in a copy of Yokohama Duel, coming soon from Tasty Minstrel Games. Sean, I have so thoroughly mastered the game of Onitama. I can beat all challengers. I cannot be stopped, even by you, even by death itself. But is there anything left for me to do in this game? I feel like I'm so good at it. I just need something more.
Well, Alex, I don't know, because you haven't yet seen my wind spirit.
Your wind spirit?
Yes, my wind spirit. I have a devastating wind spirit, Alex, that all should avoid.
Because the wind spirit gonna mess you up.
All of the New Mexican food, Alex, gives me a ferocious wind spirit.
Well, I don't think that kind of wind spirit is maybe as useful as you're thinking. The wind spirit that comes, though, in the new expansion for Onitama, Way of the Wind, can add some pretty interesting possibilities. It's an impassable piece on the board that can move using certain of the technique cards. Some of those cards will make it very, very, very tricky. You can't move into it, you can't move onto it, but it can move into you, and if it does, it switches places with your piece, and if it does that, it might put you in a pretty vulnerable position. So beware of the wind spirit in Onitama Way of the Wind, now available from fine retailers, from our partners at Arcane Wonders.
Future Robot Sean here. From this point on, Alex has some audio issues with his feet. Human Sean cleaned them up as best he could. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Everyone loves a good sequel, right? Well, when you're Azul, game that won the Spiel des Jahres, how can you go anywhere but down? We'll find out if Azul Stained Glass of Sintra is worthy of the Azul name, or if this glass should be shattered.
All right, well, before we jump into the review, we should note, Alex, that we are joined by someone other than Shelob.
Yes, yep, Shelob the spider.
A spider queen in her own right, Abby, my girlfriend, because that's her last name.
Yes, that is my last name. Hello.
I always thought he was saying it's Abby, my girlfriend, but I didn't realize that my girlfriend.
Yeah.
M-A-G.
All one word.
All one word.
Well, I like having it as a middle name so that the my is like it's AMG. So you can just refer to her as AMG. You down with AMG? Yeah, you know me.
I don't really like that sort of association to that song. But that's fine. Sure, yeah. You can do that in your own time. That's fine.
Anyway, we're up to a rip-roaring start here.
I had offered Abby to pro bono do all the legal paperwork to legally change your name to my girlfriend, if you would like.
Yeah. I appreciate the offer.
Okay.
Very kind of you. I'm going to take a pass for now, but I'll noodle on it and we'll let you know.
You didn't use the phrase I was expecting you to use. It's going to be a no from me, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is a no from me, dog. But, I thought it'd be a little bit more polite than that. Just met him. I was nice to you on our first date. And it's going to be a no from me, dog, right off the bat. I thought I'd let him feel the same joy for at least a little bit.
It's fine. I don't need to do the extra work. I got plenty to do. All right, so let's talk about Azul Sintra, not Sinatra, where it's basically can we call it the spiritual successor to Azul, or is that too on the nose?
It's the straight up successor to Azul. Yeah, straight up. It's not spiritual. Yeah, it's the successor.
It's not a spiritual game at all. So in Azul Sintra, you are creating stained glass windows, and it uses a very similar mechanic to regular Azul, where there are these different glass tiles spread out on these little coasters, and you're able to choose all of the colors from one group, and the rest go to the center. So then you take those color tiles and you place them in your board. You have different panes of glass, and you'll place them down. There's some issues with where you can place them. You have this little foreman at the top, and wherever the foreman is, you can place the tiles below him or to the right. But whenever you place them in a certain pane, you've got to move the foreman over, which is going to cut you off of previous possibilities until you take a whole turn to basically reset your foreman. Then, once you've completed a pane, you're going to score points based on a couple different factors, mostly where that particular pane is, and then for any other previously completed panes to the right, you're going to also score points for that. There's also scoring based on what round it is, because there are different colors associated with each round, and so for every glass tile of that round that matches, you're going to score an additional point. Then there's some end game scoring points where, depending on whether you're doing A or B, you're going to score points for how you've arranged glass that you've collected from having completed panes. I don't think I'm going to go into too much more detail than that. If you've played Azul, there will be some huge similarities, but it's a very different game in its own right, despite having, I think, the same basic mechanic. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say they're definitely different games, but it's clearly Azul. It feels like Azul. It doesn't feel like a different game. It feels like Azul with a twist.
And anything I missed in the rules that we need for our discussion?
Other than just like in Azul, if you take too many tiles of a certain color and can't place them or don't have anywhere to put them, it's going to be negative points. And now, unlike original Azul, where those are scored at the end of each round, these are scored cumulatively over the course of the game. Those are the differences.
So, Abby, what were your initial impressions of Azul Sintra?
Yeah, it's pretty. So I think all of the pieces look like Jolly Ranchers. Do you remember Jolly Ranchers used to come in like little square packs, like a little now and later pack of Jolly Ranchers, and they look just like those. But it's a beautiful game. I don't like that it has the same name as another game. I don't know if that is common in the industry. That you're like, I'm playing Azul. No, I'm playing Azul. The other Azul. That, like, it's its own game. I don't know why it doesn't get its own name. That feels weird to me. But yeah, it was a fun game. I liked it. I think having already played Azul with Alex before helped me pick up this one faster. I still lost both times that we played. But I kind of understood the strategy of like looking what he was doing and making moves on how they would also impact him, which I didn't grasp when I played regular Azul, as you've taken to calling it.
OG Azul.
The first time he slaughtered me the first time I played it because I didn't grasp the strategy of it.
So on the naming issue, I mean, clearly it's a marketing thing. And I think it just goes to show you can't trust board game marketers.
Yeah. I don't know why. I get it because you're like, oh, Azul. It's the same game, Azul. But like, really? You couldn't think of anything else? You couldn't just said from the makers of Azul? You had to just stick with the original name.
Now, so under that assumption, Star Wars Episode 4 and Star Wars Episode 5 and Star Wars Episode 6, not a fan of that naming convention either.
As a person who has never seen a Star Wars movie, I have no opinion on the matter.
I'm just going to drink my soda and be quiet.
Pitch Perfect 1 versus Pitch Perfect 2 and Pitch Perfect 3?
I've only seen one. It's fine. I mean, it's all in the same story, right? This is a totally different game.
I mean, first you have to lay the tile work for the bathrooms and the walls of the cathedral, and then you have to put in the stained glass. And then the third one is going to be, I don't know, the furniture design.
It's going to be a really hideous cathedral. I just feel like it's a totally different game. because plenty of games that you guys play use the same mechanics. This one has the same mechanics as also Azul, but it's a different game. It deserves its own name. But it's a good game. I liked it.
I'll echo those thoughts in that I enjoyed it, and I think the big question we're going to have with this review is, which one is better? Does Azul Sintra replace Azul itself? Is it better, worse, indifferent, somewhere in between? I think I have to talk through it a little more to get a sense of where I am on that. But it is a game that stands on its own. I don't think it's a letdown as far as a sequel goes. Those are some initial thoughts. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, I liked it well enough. I was a big fan of Azul. In fact, it made my top 10 list of 2017. And if I remember, I think you were really surprised by that, Alex.
Very. Yeah, very.
Because very often you'll say, oh, Sean doesn't like light games. Like, no, I do like light games when they're really good. And Azul was really good. And this one was similar enough. And in some ways, I feel like the scoring was more intuitive. Because the scoring in regular Azul is a lot less intuitive to me. But in some ways, I felt like Azul was a little bit tighter and meaner than Sintra was. If that makes sense. It's easier in regular Azul to really screw up your opponent than I feel like in Azul. And I kind of enjoyed that because I tend to just like more in-your-face games. But I like this well enough.
Okay. Let's get into it. Rulebook. Sean, how was the rulebook for this one in terms of learning the game?
It was okay. So our first play of this was a while back, and we played it, I forget, we were at Empire on a Saturday for some reason, which is not typical. And I was actually playing with Matthew and his wife Jess and with Susan. And we kind of just muddled through. We learned the game as we played. I figured, oh, well, it's going to have enough similar to Azul. And actually, it's not the fault of the rulebook. It's totally my fault. There were a bunch of assumptions that I kind of made about certain things based on my knowledge of Azul. But overall, it wasn't, I think the rulebook was probably fine. It does the thing with like color section breakdowns that makes it easy to kind of see what you're trying to figure out. So yeah, I thought it was a good enough rulebook, and I probably had some trouble referencing things afterwards, but I think as far as learning the game, the rulebook was fine. How'd you guys learn the game?
Yeah, I had learned it from my buddy Matt at work, one of three Matts at work. And so I went to the rulebook just to kind of verify things worked how I thought they worked. And then also when I was trying to learn the other version of scoring that we didn't use, because there's two ways of endgame scoring, the A side and the B side. When I was trying to learn how the B side scoring worked, that was also something where opening up the rulebook came into play. When I needed stuff, I found it. Did I do a good job teaching this?
Yeah, you do a good job teaching stuff. I don't know if you've ever had Alex teach you a game before, but he gets it all set up and he goes, okay, so this is Azul. I don't know what this game is called. Na. And then he like presents it to you like you're meeting someone for the first time. It's always fun learning a game from you.
Aw. Now, Sean's experience of teaching me games is very, very different, which I think is his reaction to this. Because I may be an okay teacher, but sometimes with certain games, I may not be the best learner.
You are not a willing participant in the learning process.
I get a little impatient sometimes.
You constantly complain about people who don't pay attention to the way you want when you're teaching them a game, and yet you are that person. Wow.
So Abby, for reference, we had an affectionate nickname for Alex, totally affectionate. He is the princess and the pea, because we had to engineer every game experience. Like the first time he would play a game, we had to engineer it in such a way, right player count, right environment, right actual people for that game, temperature, like all of these things had to be perfect to make sure that he gave a game a fair chance.
Wow. I'm more like you than I thought.
The conditions definitely have to be right for Abby, my girlfriend, to enjoy a new game. If it's a game that she's familiar with, it's more likely that, like if I said right now, hey, let's play Azul after this, you'd probably be, yeah, sure, whatever. I know Azul, it's fine. Or you know enough about the game to. But if it's a newer game, there's always going to be that little edge of suspicion, because there's been enough times where I've taught you a new game and you've been like, you thought I was going to like this? So yeah, it was dicey. But in terms of, it's a reasonably easy game to learn. And in the two times I've taught it, because I taught it another time in preparation for this review, people have grokked it pretty easily. So the system itself is still accessible and friendly and not too hard to get into, which I think is a good point for the game.
Had you taught it to anybody that hadn't played OG Azul?
Yes, I have.
Okay. See, I didn't. Everyone that I played with, we had all played Azul previously. Any noticeable differences
in terms of how between those two?
Yeah.
I think having a familiarity with the drafting system of Azul is a very good baseline because you know pretty much half the game already, and it's really just the glazier. But that system is so easy to explain. There really isn't much of a difference. I think it's just inherently an easy to teach game. I think that's one of the benefits and why Azul has been as successful as it is because it has that accessibility.
So let's talk about the components and the Jolly Ranchers and whatnot. What did you guys think about the components and art of the game?
Yeah, so like I said, I like the little tiles, those Jolly Ranchers. I think they look beautiful and fantastic. I do not like the little flip over thing. They're all kind of smushed in there, and it's very hard to like dig it out without messing up all your other stuff. But it's doable. It's not like break the game or anything like that.
I think it's both the strongest and weakest part of the game, in a sense. The presentation of the game, I think, is great. It looks beautiful. The Jolly Ranchers, the coasters, all high quality, well made. There's the end game scoring built right into the scoreboard. But I think in a couple of respects, one being what you were talking about, it's so fiddly trying to dig in there and flip over just that one specific one and flip it over and not bump the other ones. I think if they left even just a little bit of space in between each of those different panels, I think they could have had a lot more success in terms of having that be enjoyable. But my biggest beef with the components of this is the score track. I hate that little snaky score track. They didn't leave enough room for things to really... You have little cubes to keep track of those. There's not enough room to really have those stack in a reasonable way. And then you have the negative point tracker, which the way that's done makes it so that if you bump it a little too much or something gets moved while you're moving something else, you could lose track of how many negative points you're supposed to have or lose track of what score you're supposed to have. It's not done in a functional way. And I think it really let the game down. Because some of the other pieces are gorgeous. I love the Jolly Rancher stained glass pieces. I like how it builds and slides into the bottom of the board. I even like that little, I thought it was going to be completely useless, but that little piece where you dump the tiles you've already used so that you can help refill the bag. I even like how that worked. But there's so many of these, you feel like there could have been better solutions for it. I don't know if adding score markers, just hand those out to people or hand out tokens and you have a certain number of negative tokens that equates to this at the end of the game, or just some sort of more intelligent design as it ties to that could have made for a better experience. I don't know if some of it was size limitations or what played into it, but just a lot of that stuff just isn't functional.
So talking about the individual strips, the panes of glass, the columns, right? I think it was really cool how they did that because it adds a lot of variability to the game. Basically, you just randomize them per player, and they're double-sided, so you're never going to see the same board twice necessarily. But you're right in that they're all packed so tightly together that once you complete a pane, you do have to flip it over or remove it if it's the second time. And yeah, there was constantly jostling of boards and having to fix that, which was a little bit annoying. And yeah, the score track, man, that was annoying. But it was annoying in OG Azul too. It was a little bit better in the sense that everyone had their own score track, but it's still a cube that perfectly fits in a square, and so it's very easy to misplace where that actually belongs. So I think overall, art, presentation, components are, I think, excellent. I was less of a fan of the tiles than the tiles in regular Azul. I think the tiles in regular Azul are beautiful. I think they look super cool. And for some reason, these glass tiles didn't really do it for me. But at the same time, I don't know what you would expect for glass tiles, right? It's kind of like the genie in the new live action Aladdin. Like, there's all this complaint about Will Smith as a genie. He looks ridiculous, but it's like, well, what else would he look like? When you're gonna have a blue Will Smith genie, that's what he's gonna look like, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you that the OG Azul tiles are super beautiful, and I think they could get that level of detail on those. Like, why couldn't they do like a tiny little translucent mini stained glass window tile type deal? I don't know. I think there was a possibility, but I do like the Jolly Ranchers. I like the quality of the pieces.
And every single person I've played this with has thought that part of the game was edible. I mean, that's how much like Jolly Ranchers these things look. So I don't know if they're going to get sued over some poor kid choking on one of these Azul tiles at some point.
No, I think anyone that would do that is probably already eaten Tide Pods, so it's fine. They've already been thinned out.
Fair enough. Gameplay and innovation. And this is one where the comparison point, I think, becomes more sharp. Sean, you mentioned feeling that this one was less take that than original Azul. Is that your feel of it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, so in regular Azul, you are trying to achieve things on your board. And especially in the smaller player count games, you can be a lot more aware of what other players are doing. And you can see when there's a big opportunity to set someone up for taking a bunch of tiles that they can't use. And there's some pretty significant negative points that can occur each round because of that. And I feel like in Sintra, some of that was missing, and probably as a gateway game, as more of an entry-level game, I think that that's probably a better thing. I think that you have a little bit more freedom. Like if man, I really don't want to take this, I'm just going to go ahead and move my foreman back. And I didn't feel like it's as punishing, and I feel like you have more choices and where tiles can go than you do in original Azul, if that makes sense. It's a little bit more open and a little bit less punishing, which is probably better for what this game is trying to be.
I think it's part of the reason I enjoyed this game a little bit more than I did original Azul. Original Azul feels like it's this constrained set of things you can do, right? You're limited to, in this row of 3, I can't do this. In this row of 4, I can't do that. This is partially complete, so I can only take this for the moment. And if I take too many, too bad, so sad. This one feels like the possibilities are open. Not only do you have that one backside of the tile that has the Joker spaces on it, but you might have several possibilities for where things can go. At the end of the game, certainly down in the stretch in the last couple of rounds, it might be a situation where I literally can't place any more orange tiles because I don't have anywhere to put them. But the fact that it always gives you that option, almost always gives you that option to reset, to move back and reload and figure it out. I like that it opens up those possibilities. It has the gameplay itself feel a little bit more creative to me, whereas Azul can feel a little bit more forced in some of the decisions it makes you make. Well, and which of the two did you like better? Because I asked you afterwards, and I was expecting a clear preference, and you didn't have a clear preference between these two.
No. I don't know. I feel like the forced comparison between the original Azul and the other one is there because they picked the same freaking name for the game. Whereas, like, had they just marketed it as its own game, you could have been like, oh, it reminds me of Azul. Like, but they decided to pigeonhole it into that, and now you're forced to be like, well, which one do you like better? If you can only have one on your shelf, which one do you have? And I don't know. If I had one or the other, I wouldn't be upset about only having one of them. I don't think it's necessary to own both, though. I don't think they're that different that you're going to be like, no, I really want to play this version.
Well, let me set the stage. It's a Thursday night, not a recording night, not a Dukes of Dice recording night. I've gotten home, made you spaghetti and meatballs. We just finished watching a show, and we got time for a game. You know, it's feeling like in a good mood. And for some reason, the only two games that we feel like playing are Azul and Azul Stained Glass of Sintra. In that very specific situation and scenario, which one would you prefer to play?
Azul Jolly Ranchers.
Azul Sintra. Okay. Why?
I feel like I'm better at competing against you in that game.
Okay. So you feel like you can understand the scoring and the strategy of it a little bit more readily than original Azul. Because I think you beat me at original Azul at least a couple times. We played that one more.
Yeah, we played it more. It's easier to count tiles in original Azul and be like, oh, it's impossible for him to fill this one up because this is all that's left. Whereas in the Jolly Rancher one, I couldn't keep track of what's available, what's not. What he needs varies based on what tile slipped up. So it was it waited until the very end before it felt like you could, mess you up purposefully.
Well, and the possibility of a reset also changes things up too, in that you can't, he's going to have to take one of these or these. Oh, he's resetting. Oh, oops, that throws things off a little bit. I think it adds that strategic possibility and that other decision point in there. Sean, have you played both with Raquel?
Raquel has not played Sintra. She likes regular Azul. Mariah likes regular Azul. And we've played regular Azul several times. I think my preference is definitely for regular Azul for kind of the reasons that I've mentioned. There are things that I like better about Sintra. Like I like that it's a little bit more intuitive. I feel like it is easier to teach than regular Azul because the scoring in regular Azul, where how you score when you place a tile, depending on what are orthogonally adjacent to it, and the end game scoring is a little harder to explain. And I do like the fact, for example, in Sintra, that it's a predetermined number of rounds. In one sense, I like that in one sense, right? For what it's trying to be as a gateway game, I think it's better. But in regular Azul, the game ends when certain conditions are met. And so a part of me does like that better. I know I'm sounding like I'm kind of contradicting myself. I think for what these games are trying to be, I think Azul Sintra does that better. But for more of kind of a cutthroat game and trying to force a game end on someone, I like what regular Azul does. Does that make sense?
It makes some amount of sense. I think Azul is a satisfying puzzle that has some amount of interactivity that can be cutthroat, I guess. And Azul Sintra feels more like, weirdly enough, a game, oddly to me, because it has interaction. It's interesting because they interact in such different ways. And yeah, Azul Original can feel more cutthroat, but it can also feel more forced and predetermined and this specific puzzle done in this specific way. I think partly because that one side of the board in Azul is always the same. Sure, you can play with that B side that's different, but that one board is always, what you're trying to build is always going to be that same thing. You always want to try and do this, or this, and certainly that's going to depend on what tiles come out. Whereas this one, it feels more open because the window that you're starting off with is completely randomized and might look totally different game to game.
So are you saying that Azul, regular Azul, much like the Mind, is not really a game?
Don't tell him it's not a game. I have to spend the rest of the day with him. Don't get him all hot and bothered about, it's a real game.
Well, I mean, here he is saying Azul's not really a game, and he's so inflamed when someone says that about the Mind.
I'm not saying Azul's not really a game.
Well, let's play back the tape.
It feels like a little less of one.
Okay.
Just saying.
So in that same way, would you then concede that the Mind is less of a game than, say, Lords of Waterdeep?
Interesting question. On the scale of feels less of a game, I guess. Yeah, I could see that.
Okay. Sure. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
If we're saying something is gamey as an adjective, I guess that would fit in that. But I don't know, that adjective.
Azul. It's all gamey.
All right. Well, I'm sounding like a dummy.
Real quick before theme, play count. I've played this at 2, 3, and 4, and I think it plays well at all those play counts.
I've played it at 2 and 4, and it played well at both of those play counts. Certainly when you're playing in a 4-player game, the number of lily pads or coasters or whatever you want to call them, that opening up allows for more possibilities, especially in early rounds. It feels even less cutthroat than a 2-player game does. In a 2-player game, you can see very clearly Abby wants this, Abby wants that, and can try and draft around that or move and negotiate and try and figure things out by looking ahead. So I think I enjoy it more 2-player because of that. But I think it plays great at both 2 and 4. I have not played it at 3. And you only played it at 2. It's good enough at 2 that Abby will only play Azul Sintra from now on. She'll never play Azul. I might as well burn this copy.
What? No, I didn't say any of that. If that's what you took out of this review, then you should open your ears more.
Dang. All right. That's fair. In terms of variability, too, it's worth talking about. There's 2 different ways of scoring at the end of this. We mentioned the stained glass windows themselves feel different. We only played, when you played, with the A-side scoring. The B-side scoring I also found interesting and found provides even a little bit more choice or a different form of choice, but it had the games had a nice little twist having those 2 different scoring methods, and I appreciated having that. Did you prefer A or B scoring in this, Sean?
I think I preferred B scoring because I felt like it made the choices a little bit harder with B-side. So basically, anytime you complete a pane, you're going to discard 4 of the tiles into the little tile tower, and the 5th one you keep and put on your board there. And then when you replace that same pane again, or complete the same pane, you take that 5th tile and you place it on the bottom. And so at the end of the game, on side A, you're basically scoring for clumps of squares, of 4 tiles. And on side B, you're scoring number of completed tops and bottoms multiplied by your most
common color.
Most common color, right.
Yeah, so if you had 5 orange tiles and you'd cleared off, if you completed 4 of the panes, then you'd have 20 extra bonus points at the end of the game, is how that works.
And I felt like that was a little bit more involved in the decision-making process, side B. So my preference, I think, would be to play side B almost all the time.
All right, real quick, theme.
I say this is more thematic than Azul, but still not super thematic.
Just having the glazier alone, that little worker person moving to the right, had it feel a little bit more thematic. Did you feel more like you were building a stained glass, or did you feel more like you were building a mosaic of tiles, or are both not really connected to the theme in your mind, Abby?
I think both of them fit the theme. I don't know. I don't think the Glazy Boy added anything.
Oh yeah, we called him a Glazy Boy. Glazy Boy. He's a Glazy Boy. What? You got an issue with the Glazy Boy?
Now I want a donut.
No, I don't know. I don't think either of them felt particularly super thematic or not thematic. Like, yes, I am building a mosaic. I don't know what the word Azul has anything to do with building a mosaic, but cool. Yes, I'm building stained glass. I don't know. Seemed fine.
Yeah, that's my reaction too. Seemed fine. It's slightly more than Azul, but it's more of an abstract-y game anyway.
Right.
So I think the end result you have at the end of Azul is more satisfying to look at, because it's something you've built and it's a mosaic, whereas what you've built at the end of Azul Sintra is just sort of randomly assorted colors on the bottom of your board.
Right.
And it's whatever. So in that sense, in terms of the end result, Azul feels a little bit better and a little more thematic. In terms of the as you're playing, Azul Sintra feels a little more thematic. Either way, it's about the same. About the same. So, yeah. Let's get to guild thoughts before we get to a final thought. And we had quite a few guild thoughts, and the guild was not on the same page with this one, Sean. Adam Galton says, original Azul is better than Azul Stained Glass of Sintra. I like them both, not enough to own either, but I think Azul does better what it does than Azul number 2 does. Everyone seems to own Azul, and a lot of my gaming friends own the other. So I'm sure I'll play them both more in the future and won't be sad about it. Low 4 on the ducal scale, with the original Azul taking a high 4.
And then Rob Pettit says, my wife and I like Stained Glass of Sintra better than the original. The columns of the glass can be a little fiddly, but we actually like the components better, especially the central scoring board. We find it a little more forgiving than the original, but we have seen where someone had to take a whole pile of glass, giving them a bunch of negative points. Definitely a 5, and possibly a 6 for us. Ooh.
Yeah. Chris Holmes says, the Azul sequel does not overstay its welcome. It holds attention from casual players. It struck me as slightly more involved, but still a quite accessible gateway game.
And then Paul Naxter says, I found Azul Stained Glass to be a competent game, and I think it would have done pretty well in a universe where Azul Stained Glass of Sintra came out first and Azul second. I enjoyed the variation in gameplay and being able to pass to move your worker back to the start. This added some new strategy to the game. Regular Azul shines brighter for me, though, because of the short teach and higher level of player interaction. A strong 3.
Ian Kissel says, I'm not as in love with Azul as most people seem to be, but I would play it every time over Sintra. First, I dislike much more how the broken glass works versus in the original, where with some careful play, you could get some broken tiles and it wouldn't cost you a lot of points. I like the pressure to have to try to finish a row by the end of a round, otherwise it would impede your next round. Overall, I like the gameplay and components of original Azul better, mainly as I feel it is more challenging. I would give Sintra a 3, although I can't see myself ever playing it again unless someone really wanted to. Well, Ian, let's be frank, that's probably a 2. Come on. Just saying.
And then finally, Christopher John says, I am probably in the minority, but I vastly prefer Stained Glass to the original. For some reason, it is just one of those games that I get. I never can form a coherent strategy in the original, but I can clearly determine a strategy almost every time in the Stained Glass game. I'm sure there are games like that for you all. For the record, I also like the Jolly Rancher pieces over the Starburst pieces. So there you go, Abby.
I'm not alone.
No, No, she is not alone. All right, final thoughts and ratings, Sean. As longtime listeners know, we rate everything here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale, with a 1 being low, bad, very bad, and a 6 being an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10, a.k.a. very, 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 very good. I don't think this game's going to see either end of that scale, but worth knowing where the points are. What are we going to do here, Sean? Ladies first? Is you first? Am I going first? How are we doing this?
Abby is our guest, so regardless of her gender, as the guest, she should go first.
Guest? Guest Abby? Guest Abby, my girlfriend?
Abby, your guest.
Abby, my guest. Girlfriend, guest. What would you rate Azul stained glass of Sintra on the Ducal scale? And I'll pull up the scale so you have it handy for you in case you'd like to reference it.
I would say probably 5.
So 5 being a great game, will rarely turn down a play of it. Why does it get a 5?
It doesn't take a super long time to play, but it's fun, competitive, feels satisfying when you play it. I liked it. Yeah, it was good.
And original Azul would also get a 5.
Yeah, probably. I put them both very similar. Yeah, I think if you had a preference to one, I would be fine with leaning towards that.
There you go. 5 from Abby, my girlfriend. Sean, what did you give this one?
So I'm kind of struggling here. It's between a 3 and a 4. So 3 is game is okay, not exciting, will play in the right situation, whereas a 4 is a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. So regular Azul, I would probably give a 5. A great game, will rarely turn down a play of it. And this is kind of a mess, because on one hand, I think that if I am playing Azul, either Azul, for the purpose of playing with, a newer gamer, someone comes to the shop and they're just joining the Duke's Dice game night and they're like, yeah, I've played Scrabble and Risk years ago. Okay, let's play an Azul game. I would probably pick Sintra, because I do think it is easier to teach and the scoring is much more intuitive and it's more forgiving and it's less cutthroat. So I think that's the one I would choose in that situation. But if I wanted to play a quick 2-player or even 3-player game, we've got 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever. I would, with whoever, I'd probably pick regular Azul. So I think this is just going to barely get a 4 for me. A good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. Like I said, I'm glad that I have access to it at Empire. I own regular Azul. I will not purchase Sintra, but at least I have access to it, and I'm gonna need it more in that gateway sense at Empire than I would here at the house. So, yeah, I was ready to give it a 3, but it just barely eked its way up to a 4.
I gotcha. For me, this is a sequel that improves on the original. I wasn't as enamored with Azul as everyone else was. I still enjoyed it, and after Abby, my girlfriend, enjoyed playing the original, that had me pay more attention to the sequel. And I think the opening of possibilities, while still keeping it accessible, despite some component issues, I think has this thing sitting at a 4 and maybe even a high 4, whereas Azul would be kind of a straight 4. This would be a high 4. I think it's one worth having in the collection. I don't think you necessarily need to own both. I think if you're gonna, if you like Azul just fine, I don't know if there's a reason to necessarily scoop up Sintra just to have it. If you haven't scooped up either, I'd probably purchase Sintra before I'd purchase actual Azul. But then again, Azul is sort of getting this reputation as a must-have game in the hobby. Kind of like, for a long time, Splendor was sort of that one go-to of the engine builders for people to have. I don't know if that's true anymore. I don't think it is. But I don't know which one I would recommend someone buy first. But I think if I didn't own either, I'd probably want to buy Sintra first. And for that reason, I would give it a high 4.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the Duke's review of Azul, Stained Glass of Sintra, a 5 from Abby, my girlfriend, and a pair of 4s from the Duke boys.
Now, let's be clear. It's not Abby, my girlfriend for you.
No.
It's Abby, my girlfriend for me. So
I'm not the community girlfriend.
That's just the designation. It's not a possessive thing.
It's a name.
Jeez.
I'm just saying, step off the turf, because she my girlfriend. She not your girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah, that's weird, man.
Yeah, you're making this weird, man. Jeez.
Yeah,
I make things weird all the time.
You sure do.
It's fine. It's what we all love about you.
Well,
it's what we all love. It's what we all love, despite.
Anyway, thanks to Abby, my girlfriend, for appearing on the show. How did you like this appearance? Is this one better or worse than the previous appearance?
I still don't feel like the people who listen to your show really give a rip about my opinion. Like, I don't know. I don't seek out board game podcasts. Shocking. I know. So I have the opinion of a person who doesn't seek out the board game podcast. So I don't know why the people who do would somehow find my opinion valuable in their decision making.
But you do listen to each Dukes episode twice, right?
Of course. And send show notes in response. And I really thought it was great that you guys did this, but you should probably approve on this every time. Always.
Well, anyway, that's Abby, my girlfriend. If you valued her opinion, because I value her opinion, let us know on the guild. Anyway, yeah, Sean had already recapped the review. That's our review. Abby, my girlfriend, gives it a 5. I give it a 4. High 4. Sean gives it a low 4.
Good recap of the recap.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
Finally, this week, we are taking a look back at episode 190. Wait, not 195. There's no way it was 195. Episode 170. There we go. Episode 170, Artistic Highlights 2849, where we reviewed Pulsar 2849. Sean, at the time, you gave this one a 4. You said, there's something extra here that was missing that could have made it a 5, but it just fell a little short for you, but you still enjoyed the game for what it was. I gave it a 5. I said the setup and breakdown would make it a little bit trickier to get to the table, but it succeeds as a point salad, and it's a game that I want to explore more. And our guest for that week, Dan King, the Game Boy Geek, gave it a 5, said it was his favorite Euro dice drafting game. And that it had surpassed, what is that game? Grand Austria Hotel as his favorite Euro dice drafting game. Really enjoyed it. Sean, have you played this game since?
No, sir, I have not.
Interesting.
I liked it well enough. It was a good game. I enjoyed it. It's a solid point salad. It is a very good design by Vladimir Sushi. Not nearly as good as Underwater Sillies? Underwater Sillies.
Underwater Sillies.
That sounds like a fun game. Underwater Cities. I haven't thought about playing this game. I would definitely play it. I mean, it's not a 2 by any stretch, and I don't even think I would drop it to a 3. I think it was good. It just isn't particularly memorable, and I certainly enjoy myself in the moment, in the gameplay, but it's not something I'm looking to get back to the table anytime soon.
So, as part of moving in with Abby, my girlfriend, I went through all of the board games in my collection and picked ones that are going to stay, ones that are going to go. And when I had this one in my hand, it's a pretty good test of where a game is on a double take, if you think about it. By the way, there's a possibility Puzzle Strike may be getting sold at a game convention near you.
Thank goodness.
Possibility. I haven't decided yet, but it's on the fence. Pulsar 2849 was a no doubt this game has to come with me. This is a game that I have played since our... Yes, I have played since our review. I played it at Geekway to the West with the draft mechanic. And I think I may have played it another time separate from that, too. I think I've played it twice since the review. I really enjoy it. And I still feel like I haven't explored enough of what the game has to offer because it has that built-in variability that's really satisfying and interesting. And I just haven't explored it enough to really know which of those things I would like even more. But I really, really enjoy this game. There's something about this that just clicks in a really nice way for me. And for that reason, I see no reason to drop it. It's not going to move. It certainly doesn't get as high as a 6, but I'd say it's on the higher end of a 5. It's a 5 for me still.
And so over the guild, Jimmy DM90 pretty much sums up my thoughts. Sold it pretty immediately. It had a lot going on, but nothing about it excited me, and setup was a bit of a bear. I'd rather play any of Luciani's Dice Heroes or Castles of Burgundy.
Interesting. Britt Maurer says, Pulsar is a fantastic game that I wish saw the table more often. In fact, when I saw this was going to be a double take, I packed it for my impending game night. I really enjoy the decision-making when taking your die and how it relates to turn order and your engineering abilities. Lots of strategies to explore here, and that is what will keep me coming back. Because of this game, I can't wait to try Mr. Suchi's next one, Underwater Cities, a high 4, possibly low 5 for me.
So Brett, get on it, because Underwater Cities is a fantastic. Just fantastic. All right. BJ from Board Game Gumbo says, I finally got to try Pulsar 2849 last year, and I can see why it's a popular pick for an overlooked gem of that year, as it is mechanically solid and the tech tree is very interesting. One try was not enough to rate it, but it is definitely a game I would try again.
Evan says, is it a point salad? Yes, but I don't mind the point salady nature of this game because you don't get the tightly packed scores of a typical point salad. Good play will certainly win this game, and there are so many different avenues to take. However, diversifying among them is a killer. You have to pick a path and stick with it. The sheer number of options and the table space the game requires may make it a bit daunting for new gamers. However, the ability to chain events and create combos gives the players a sense of cleverness that makes up for the significant learning curve. While this is certainly a good game, I don't know if it's a special game. I didn't get any wow moments playing it, but I wonder if that will come upon future plays as I experience the game a bit deeper. This one is a 4 on the Ducal scale, solid 4, not close to a 3, not close to a 5.
And I'm wondering if this was the beginning, Alex, of when the midweight Euro was starting to lose some of its luster for me.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what was happening.
And there have been, some notable exceptions, but this is a solid game. It's really good, but it just wasn't doing it for me.
Well, and I think we're going to see that in double takes as we go. I can already think ahead. Rajas of the Ganges, when that comes up, if that hasn't already come up.
No, I already rated that one pretty low. I was pretty unimpressed with it.
Right, but what I was saying is I think this is the turning point right here, and I think we'll start to see those scores drop, and I think the double takes will also drop, tied to some of these games as well. So, yeah, it's just a sense of where you're at. But for me, I find it really enjoyable, and it's one that's stuck around in my mind and one that's sticking around in my collection.
Fair enough. All right, well, that's going to do it for the Duke's double take of Pulsar 2849, staying at a 5 for Alex, and staying at a 4 for me, Sean. Sean, my podcast co-host.
Sean, my boyfriend. All right, finally, let's take a look at the names that we didn't pick, but maybe in some cases came oh so very close. Sean, lead us off.
Sure. So Chris Holm suggested, "What's Starlight Through Yonder Window Breaks?" Yeah, so that's a nice little Shakespearean reference. I think we think it's Romeo and Juliet, right? But we've talking about Starlight with Pulsar, and window breaking is obviously tied to Azul stained glass of Sintra. So good job, Chris.
Yes, indeed. Paul Naxer comes with Star Glazers 1415. Which is a clever name.
Okay. I was like, are you going to say something about it?
No, it's a clever name.
Well, yeah. We've got Starglazers. Okay. All right. Anyway, the name father suggested...
Can I be clear? Because Paul does explain this on the guild.
Sure, go nuts.
1415 marked the beginning of a major building campaign on the Palace of Sintra, some of which stands today. The rest speaks for itself. I think it's a pretty clever name. Just didn't get picked.
All right, and then Steve O'Rourke, the name father, suggested Smoochy and Kissling, I guess, depending on how you want to say it, kind of tying into the fact that this is just after Valentine's Day that we're recording this, and Smoochy, or Vladimir Suchi, like smooching and kissing, Smoochy and Kissling. All right.
Yeah.
Good job, Steve.
Yeah. You beat it to death, Sean.
All right.
Beat it to death. Blaine Smiley with a reference to an Annie Lennox song, and also Sean's obsession with Magic the Gathering with Planes Walking on Broken Glass.
I like it. And then finally, Baker Mitchell suggested Space Window, which doesn't sound particularly much of anything until you realize the explanation behind it. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. So at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., there's a particular stained glass window known as the Space Window. It actually has a small piece of moon rock that was brought back by astronauts from Apollo 11.
Allegedly, Alex.
Allegedly.
If you're gonna believe that kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, I do believe that thing. So, Space Window from Baker Mitchell, and the explanation I think was cooler than the name in this case, which is also fine. I like a good explanation. That'll do it, Sean.
That is going to do it, Alex. We're wrapping up here, episode 195, Fly Me to the Moon. Thanks again to Kyle Kelly for that awesome episode title. Well, Alex, until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on February 16th, 2019. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and Game Toppers, LLC. You can check out all of TMG's awesome titles at PlayTMG.com. Arcane Wonders find games at ArcaneWonders.com. And learn more about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!